All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Believe in Bills. I am Adam Benigni alongside fellow WGRZ Sports Talk Live colleague, longtime colleague, Vic Carucci, also of SiriusXM NFL Radio, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. The list is too long to go down his resume here. But Sal Majorana traveling today. So, Vic, it's just the two of us. And that was sobering to say the least.
Yes.
You can debate where the Bills offense ranks. There's the statistics and then reality of where the Bills offense ranks in the National Football League. There isn't much doubt today as to where the Texans defense ranks, right? Right where they came into the night at number one.
Yeah. Let me say this at the beginning. I'm disappointed that we don't have Sal's hot takes on this because this is the game. This is the kind of game that is perfect for a Majorana recap. But anyway, I'll do my best. In terms of the numbers, you're right. Statistically, of course, I want to say they're second, like in an overall offense, Buffalo. But they went up against the top defense in the league, scoring and yards allowed. And the Texans looked every bit of that. I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that it would be a challenge, and it was a challenge. And it was a game that was winnable for the Bills. What obviously has a lot of us, I think, looking and wondering is how overwhelmed an offensive line, Adam, that had really done a good job, one of the best in the league at pass protection. That you can say about the Bills' offense. That line had not had any game close to what we saw last night, and this was a physical beating that obviously Josh Allen took, but that the linemen themselves across the board, they were overmatched. They were beaten physically and strategically. I want to say the scheming by the Texans got the better of the Bills, especially up front with the work they did.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because they really did that primarily with four.
Yep.
Right? I think Kirk Herbstreit at one point during the broadcast said they had blitzed only 4 times based on how they were tracking that.
Right.
And we've seen that recipe before, right, with championship teams. If you can get pressure with 4, that is a recipe for, high-end caliber defense, right? Because of what it does in the coverage. Obviously, it's a numbers game and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 sacks for 70 yards, career high number for Josh Allen. I mean, there's pressure, and then there's what we saw last night, which was absolute domination by the Houston Texans in that 23-19 win.
I can't imagine how he felt waking up this morning or after that long trip back from Houston physically, because we saw the pounding, the beating that he took. And I mean, it was visible. He was dismissing it as he usually does after the game, like, nothing to worry about. And I know he's a big, tough guy. That's what he's all about. But taking a beating like that, unnatural for him, unnatural for most quarterbacks, and those who take those kinds of beatings often aren't available to play again, certainly not in the near term. And it's a good thing for the Bills that there is this, this mini bye, this extended time between now and when they play the Steelers. But he was hit, 12 times? There were 12 quarterback hits.
Yep.
There were, by the stats I saw, 24 pressures total on 34 pass attempts. So this was a night spent very much with pressure on Josh, hits on Josh, sacks. He didn't have a chance on many of those 8 sacks. Yes, coverage was also a thing. And back to the point of their ability to rush with 4, meaning they had maximum coverage, and a receiver group that has struggled with pass catchers getting open. Wasn't a problem so much against Tampa Bay last Sunday, has been a problem for most of the season, was a problem last night.
So how much does this, coming off the win over Tampa Bay, right, and seeing all that production, and Keon Coleman now inactive for the second straight game, right? But obviously a vastly different outcome when you see them go against an elite defense like that. How much does this I don't know if it changes the complexion for me, Vic, of what I think we kind of know what they are offensively, right?
Right.
You just see them in different situations. I mean, it is I used the term sobering before. We had thought the receiver position might be an issue in terms of the composition of it, the types of players they have, the ability to separate or not, right? And we see that come to fruition all too often. So I mean, it does cause and kind of extend very serious concern for me about their status of what they're going to face down the stretch, and obviously in the postseason, assuming they get there.
Well, I think the place to start with where the level of concern should be, it's a given now that this receiving core, mediocre might be charitable in terms of describing the group as a whole, and we shouldn't be surprised when there are games like this, because we've seen more games like this than not from that standpoint, right? And that they've overcome it in games when they've run well, or against Tampa when Josh has been able to do some of his improvisational things and put on that cape, as we like to say. But it's the 1-3 record on the road, Adam, that you got to look at here. This is what is punctuated by this loss. That not only is it a third conference defeat, right? It is it's a game that or a situation in which they do not function well on the road. Yeah, they got that win at Carolina, but that was Carolina. So I don't think it speaks to the idea that, well, sometimes they're good on the road. When you think about what the road looks like ahead for this football team, we're thinking playoffs, and we're thinking a team that, again, assuming they're getting in, likely as a wild card. I think they're falling far enough back in that division race. It would seem that New England is likely to take that division. So where does that leave the Bills? And record-wise, it leaves them having to travel in the postseason. And given what and given the kinds of opponents they're going to see in the postseason, and how they've been mishandling these games, it doesn't bode well. It looks like this is not a team that's equipped to do anything of substance in the postseason.
Yeah, and that's disturbing, considering where the expectations were. And you make a point like that, and I agree with you. I think a lot of people do, right? I mean, Super Bowl odds, FanDuel, the presenting sponsor for this show, Bills are down, tied for 7th. They're down to 7th, tied with the Ravens at plus 1,300. And I think that speaks to the very issue you just outlined in terms of having to go on the road. That's disturbing to me, given where they are. Right. Disturbing to a lot of people, given where they are in Josh Allen's tenure, what the expectations were surrounding this team, decisions that were made to build this roster. I mean, injuries are a huge factor, and we can get into that here in just a second. But you and I spoke at an event prior to the season, and we talked about the unlikelihood, but if they were to underachieve in the postseason, in the regular season, that there could be ramifications for that in terms of philosophy. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but to kind of see that, and there's still a fair number, 6 games left, but how disturbing is it to you that this is the conversation we're having? Because, yeah. I mean, it seems like there were some errors in judgment in terms of philosophy and how this thing was put together and what they thought they could expect out of it.
Yeah, and let me correct myself. I gave them only one road win. They did also beat the Jets. I guess I blocked that one out. Yeah. So it's 2-3 on the road. In terms of how the roster is constructed, there's all kinds of room for second guessing there, for sure. And then it gets exasperated when you have Dalton Kincaid, who was the most reliable of their pass catchers, suffer that hamstring injury that he did against Miami, and now missing, he misses 2 games. And no, they didn't feel it so much against Tampa Bay, and they certainly didn't feel sitting Keon Coleman then, but they sit Keon Coleman against Houston. And I don't know that he's any kind of difference maker. So I'm going to just say I know that's maybe a separate discussion, but the fact that you're sitting down a guy who was earmarked to be your number one guy is part of the issue that we're talking about, how this roster's been constructed and how the receiving picture or position is put together. So yeah, those questions linger. And could that ultimately cost this team? It might. I guess my other question is the defense and how it gets trampled against the run. Now, yes, in the first half, that was a bigger problem, and it allowed this Texans team to get its touchdowns and do the majority of its scoring then, and then it was shut down, held to 3 points in the second half. And I know Sean McDermott was I think right in describing the effort as outstanding in the second half, but that was Davis Mills at quarterback.
Yep.
This is an offense that doesn't have a lot. I mean, come on, we're looking at Woody Marks as the running back. Once again, for the first half at least, it looked like another Sean Tucker situation where a back, who is hardly a household name, is suddenly running like a reincarnation of Walter Payton or Jim Brown, and that's a problem too. And maybe back to roster construction or type of players, it's a smallish defense, Adam. It's quickness, it's speed, it's pass coverage, which is what they want. And even then, and again in this game, I'll give credit with the injuries that were piling up. They were still holding their own and still putting the team in a position where it could have won the game at the end. But our thoughts are always geared toward what about the postseason? And I don't see it, frankly, on both sides of the ball or either side of the ball where you have confidence that something's going to carry them the distance.
Special teams. Before we wrap this up, let's touch on that. On the good side, Ray Davis, right? 97-yard return for a touchdown. They seem to have something there. But Matt Prater, the missed PAT. And think of the impact that had on a 23-19 final. It's obvious, right? Simple math.
It was huge. I mean, obviously they had to, it changed what their approach was, at the end of the game, what they had to do to try to get it in the end zone versus setting up for a field goal and perhaps, forcing overtime. And we know the wouldas and shouldas and couldas. And look, there will be highlight reel stuff on the Cook and lateral on 4th and 27, and that'll get talked about. Gabe Davis having half of his foot out of bounds on a play that could have been a game-winning type of play. But those are the would-haves and could-haves when you're not doing enough to, when you're in a game where your quarterback, your MVP, is getting pounded the way Josh Allen was. Those are the things that are happening. And special teams, for sure, are going to be part of this conversation. Now, granted, that return, fantastic. The returns they had against Tampa were fantastic. And sadly for them, Mecole Hardman, who I think could be the difference maker there, now he's got this calf injury. Now he's out for a bit. So I don't know if a lot is conspiring in the worst kind of way in this stretch run. It'll be for those who look at this team and say, well, they got a lot of banged up people. What do you expect? But we both know, we've seen this. We've been around this game a long time. Every team is dealing with something. It's 11 weeks in. If you're not dealing with something, something's wrong. So it frankly is amazing that they still have their starting quarterback in one piece, because honestly, Adam, watching this game, I had my doubts that Josh Allen was going to be able to finish this game. Frankly.
No, when he was down, his legs were writhing there or whatever. When he took that was the shoulder and the turf burn to the elbow, right? I mean, I kind of feel like, and listen, credit Josh Allen with the durability factor. right? I mean, that is just, when you talk about what eventually will be and what's on the trajectory to be like a Hall of Fame legacy, right? In the National Football League, that durability is going to be a part of that conversation. So I don't want to detract from that, but I sort of feel like, and he's done a much better job of kind of reining himself in and mitigating the number of hits that he takes. But I feel like in another way, they've sort of been on borrowed time with that, with Josh in an injury. And in a night like last night, when he gets hit from behind like that or hit the number of ways that he did, kind of accentuates it. And McDermott didn't say exactly that after the game, but when he talked about when the number of hits was brought, he was quick to point out, we can't have that. That's not how your quarterback stays healthy. And it's an extreme going against the Texans and what they bring, but it more than illustrates the point you just made.
Well, look, there will be and has been a lot of overreaction to a game like this, and I think some of it's justified, but some of it is you do have to take a breath. With the remaining part of their schedule, I still see in the games that are left more wins than losses. I mean, just on paper, whatever, or on my screen here digitally. Yeah. I see more wins than losses. But it has to, they have to obviously go out and do it. That's one thing. The other thing is they are not going to see this defense or a defense of this caliber again pretty much for the rest of their schedule. Now, the Eagles have a very good defense. We know that. But what are they? Maybe seventh, I think, something in the league.
Somewhere in there,
they can play, they can play well, but I think what Houston did was extraordinary, and those two pass rushers are exceptional players. They're at a certain level that that you don't see on the. And again, I know Cleveland. Yes, you've got some pretty good pass rushers there, or certainly one of the best in Myles Garrett. So there is some potential there, and it's at Cleveland. So it's again a road game against an opponent that's otherwise struggling, could be a problem. But generally speaking, my concerns are the same as where most concerns should be, and that's what's happening, Adam, when we get into January, when they do get to the postseason. And again, what kind of shape is Josh in? Is there more beatings in his future? I don't know. Can this line be as absent in other games as it was last night? I'm going to lean in the direction of it not being the case, but honestly, Deion Dawkins and then Spencer Brown got hurt, but have you seen worse play from those two tackles than you saw in that game?
No, which includes the ill-timed false start penalties and those types of things. Right, which factored in to the outcome, obviously. And the injuries, like you said. I mean, Allen comes through the game again, injured a shoulder and a turf burn, but Terrell Bernard, right, dislocated elbow. Max Hairston, concussion.
Yep.
Dawkins spent some time in the tent. Spencer Brown obviously couldn't finish the game. And you've got Ed Oliver out, Kincaid. I mean, not only you're talking injuries to highly impactful people.
There was a line, I believe, at one point going into the Bills' blue tent. That's
right.
There shouldn't be a line. It's not like you're lining up to go into a restroom or something, or that's an issue. We can get into some of the decision making from a coaching standpoint, and I realize the same guy who called the hook and lateral on 4th and 27, who positioned the throw or got the route that Gabe Davis nearly makes the catch on. But we could look at that, but we also have to look at, after James Cook's 20-yard run with about 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that sequence of 3-yard run by Cook, followed by 5-yard run by Cook, followed by 1-yard run by Cook, followed by 4th down, 2-yard loss. And it was like they kept going back to the well, and you saw the frustration on Josh Allen going back to the sideline and, the clear, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
That he says to Mitch Trubisky. And that was the same question I think a lot of us had. Like, what was that all about? And why why that particular thought process in that circumstance. You were working this guy to a point where something different had to be in play there.
Yeah. It's disturbing. It's one game, like you said. I think we've learned over the years not to necessarily overreact, but it's actually more than one in the sense that what's happened to them after that 4-0 start, right? And that's kind of, a lot of these same issues keep coming up. And I think that in the loss of the Texans, we saw it to the extreme, particularly as far as the pass protection was and the functioning of that offense and what a truly elite defense is able to do against it. All right, Vic, we appreciate it. I know you got some work to do for Channel 2 as well, so we won't hold you here any longer. We appreciate your time. And so it's against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road a week from Sunday. A little mini bye, Vic, and it's probably a good time for that, isn't it?
I would think just to heal. Like I said, I can't imagine what some of those guys, especially number 17, felt like getting out of bed this morning, man.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, we will see you Monday night, 7 o'clock as always, along with John Scott. Sports Talk Live Buffalo every Monday night, 7 p.m. on Channel 2. For Vic Carucci, I'm Adam Benigni. This has been Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.